fine with that. Yep.
No,
When we get all done, we can swap out whatever.
All right, if everybody wants to find their seat, we're going to get going. So I'm going to call to order the Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners meeting for Saturday, September 23rd, 2023. And I'm going to ask Commissioner Keel to lead us in the pledge. I'll ask the department to take the roll.
Chairman Caviglia,
Here.
Vice Chair Rogers,
Here.
Commissioner Barnes,
Here.
Commissioner Booth,
Here.
Commissioner Keel, Commissioner McNinch,
Here.
Commissioner Wise, here, Commissioner Young,
Here.
Commissioner Walther.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask any cab members in attendance here in Vegas to please announce themselves. Okay, and then any cab members on Zoom?
No, sir.
None. Okay. That will go to agenda item number 15, public comment period. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes. No action can be taken by the commission at this time. Any item requiring commission action may be scheduled on a future commission agenda. Persons making comment are asked to begin by stating their name for the record. Any public comment in Las Vegas? Seeing none, any public comment on Zoom? Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Burnside.
I just missed the roll call for the cab members. I'm here. Craig Burnside Douglas.
Okay, thank you. Nobody else? All right. That will go to agenda item number 16, approval of the agenda for possible action. The commission will review the agenda and may take action to approve the agenda for September 23rd. The commission may remove items from the agenda, continue items for consideration, or take items out of order. Any questions or concerns on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, any cab comment on the agenda? Cab comment on Zoom? Okay, any public comment on the agenda? Any public comment on Zoom? Okay, with that, I'll bring it back to the commission. Commissioner McNinch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries with Commissioner Walther absent. Okay, agenda item number 17, member items, announcements and correspondence. Commissioners may present emergent items. No action may be taken by the commission. Any item requiring commission action may be scheduled on a future commission agenda. The commission will review and may discuss correspondence sent or received by the commission since the last regular meeting and may provide copies for the exhibit file. Commissioners may provide hard copies of their correspondence for the written record. Correspondence sent or received by Secretary Janae may also be discussed. And I don't have anything beyond what I announced yesterday, so.
I have nothing as well.
Commissioner Barnes?
Just kind of a comment or announcement. We've been talking about the wine cup gamble, and really a lot of it was brought to our attention because of the Elko Cab and Jim Cooney. And I just want to thank the Elko Cab and what Chairman Cooney did to bring it to our attention, along with the department and stuff. But it just goes to show that how the whole process works, the cab process, to the state commission. And I just want to mention that in support of the cabs and the cab process and what they do bring to this commission.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, seeing none, go to agenda item number 18, county advisory boards to manage wildlife. Member items, cab members may present emergent items. No action may be taken by the commission. Any item requiring commission action will be scheduled on a future commission agenda. Any cab items in Vegas? Seeing none, any cab items on Zoom? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back. Rolling right along. Agenda item number 19A for possible action, workshop, public comment allowed. Commission General Regulation 512 Fisheries, Wildlife Staff Specialist Kim Tisdale. The commission will hold a workshop to consider amending Chapter 488 and 503 of the Nevada Administrative Code. This regulation would change vessel motor restrictions, amend tackle restrictions, and reclassify protected species classifications.
Good morning. For the record, Kim Tisdale, Fisheries Staff Specialist. Today we're bringing to you a proposal to, for your consideration, Commission Regulation, General Regulation 512, to make various changes to NAC regarding motor restrictions and tackle restrictions. I'm just going to quickly go through each of the proposed changes for you. The first proposal that we're making is to change the motor restrictions on Knott Creek Reservoir. Currently, there are no motor restrictions other than requiring a flat wake for boaters. We are making this proposal based on requests from the public, from County Game Board over the last few years. Knott Creek Reservoir is a high mountain lake. It's adjacent to a wilderness area. People go there for a nice peaceful fishing experience, but when people have motors up there, it's just hearing that motor all day long, and it's kind of loud and distracting. So people have asked for us to change the motor restriction from any motor to either no motors or electric motors only. And so that is the proposal that we're putting forward here, is moving Knott Creek Reservoir from the no motors and flat wake to, or any motor and flat wake to no motors, or you can use an electric motor. If you have any questions on any of these as I go through, feel free to break in. And then we have a number of tackle restrictions that we're proposing. The first one is Hobart Reservoir. Currently, Hobart Reservoir has a tackle restriction, artificial lures with single barbless hooks. This NAC is paired with a commission regulation that we're going to bring to you later on today, where we have a number of regulation changes that we're making to Hobart Reservoir. So the NAC requires artificial lure single barbless hooks. We're requesting that the NAC be changed to just artificial lures, so not requiring that barbless hook requirement. The Hobart Reservoir has a lot of brook trout in it, and there's not really a need to have that barbless requirement. Generally, you have a barbless hook requirement when you're trying to protect certain species, or you're trying to encourage people to release more fish because it's less harmful to the fish when you remove the hook. But at Hobart Reservoir, there's lots of brook trout, and if people want to take more brook trout, we want to encourage them to do that. And so this is paired with a CR that I'll bring to you later, and that's why we're making this request. The next change is at Smith Creek Reservoir. This is in Lander County. Smith Creek Reservoir has a current regulation that requires artificial lures with single barbless hooks. This tackle requirement was put into place years ago. The Smith Creek Ranch used to be owned and operated, and the reservoir kind of straddles BLM and private lands. And the previous owner to the Smith Creek Ranch, he actually raised trout commercially, and he was actively managing that reservoir. And he came to us at the time and said, you know, we would like more restrictive regulations because, you know, the public are coming in and they're taking all of our fish. And so we worked with him at the time to, you know, make a 1 trout limit and artificial lures, single barbless hooks, to kind of help him to, you know, create more of a kind of a trophy fishery. That ranch has since changed hands. They're no longer stocking it, and it doesn't really warrant a special tackle restriction anymore. So we're just going to remove the tackle restriction altogether from Smith Creek Reservoir, and in the CR we're going to just have it managed under general regulations for the eastern region. Okay, and the next one is the Snake Range High Lakes. This is back in 2022, last time we did regulation changes. We changed the regulations on the Snake Range High Lakes to, you know, catch and release and a artificial lures, single barbless hooks. That was our proposal. At the time, there was a bit of an oversight, and we did not do the accompanying CGR to require single barbless hooks. And so we're just bringing this back to you now to actually do the CGR to require that it be single barbless hooks. So the regulation is not changing at the Snake Range High Lakes. We're just coming back and completing the process to require single barbless hooks on the Snake Range High Lakes. And then the final change is an amendment to 503075 to update the classification of the Dixie Valley toad to endangered. In 2022, the Fish and Wildlife Service announced that the Dixie Valley toad is listed as endangered under the Endangered Species Act. So this NAC change merely reflects that designation, and so we're just updating the NAC to reflect that endangered designation. So that's all I have for that CGR. If you have any questions.
Any questions for Kim? I have a question, Kim. We did receive some correspondence from Eureka County on Tonkin Reservoir. Did you see that?
I did, yeah, we did receive that as well. I might have Cody Byrne come up and speak to it since he's the Eastern Region Fisheries Supervisor, and he's a little bit more familiar with the regulation.
Okay.
Cody Byrne, Eastern Region Fisheries Supervisor. The 3 phases for the proposal from Eureka Cab regarding Tonkin. Under the CGR, the boating would be the applicable part for this portion here. And they're recommending a similar motor restriction to what Kim described for Knott Creek, where it would be no motors or electric only. Currently, gas motors are permitted on Tonkin. Department doesn't have any preference either way. It's not going to change the management of the fishery whether gas motors are permitted on the reservoir or not. So,
And then I guess they did, it looked like they did ask too to go to single barbless hooks. So would that have to be in this as well, or?
currently, Tonkin Reservoir, the tackle restrictions on there are artificial lures only or flies. Bait is not permitted on there. There was some concerns expressed by CAB members that anglers are using bait out there. Myself and Eastern Region law enforcement staff have met with them several times. We don't think that going to single barbless only is going to change the use of bait by those anglers that are willfully disobeying the current regulations. And the simplification of just maintaining the artificial lure only regulation is longstanding at Tonkin and also easier to enforce than having to make sure it's barbless hooks. It's also a stocked reservoir, so there's not a native trout component that we're trying to maintain there or anything. And studies in other states have shown that there's minimal hooking mortality difference between single barbless and when there's already artificial lure regulations in place.
Okay. Additional questions or comments? All right, seeing none, I'll take it out for cab comment. Any cab comment in Las Vegas? Seeing none, any cab comment on Zoom? Okay, any public comment in Las Vegas? Any public comment on Zoom? No.
I'm sorry, we have a cab member who would
Okay.
like to make a comment. Go ahead, Mr. Evans.
Can you hear me?
We got you now.
Yes, Jim Evans with Eureka Cab, and we've been working on the Tonkin initiative for quite some time, probably about 5 or 6 years now. We've seen a pretty substantial decline in the naturalized native fish population that occupies the reservoir and Dene Creek proper. Back in the 70s, we went to a restricted season, April 15th through October 30, and then we converted or transitioned from bait fishery to artificials at that point in time. And the response was it was immeasurable. It was just absolutely fantastic relative to how that population responded to a restricted season, and that combined with the artificials only. So today, we're moving back, or we'd like to transition back into that regimen in terms of the regulatory initiative in order to preserve those trout. Presently, the reservoir is, at this point in time, is shrinking on an annual basis as influenced by hardstem bulrush, and then the current management at the reservoir, the folks that have the reservoir, they maintain the water at a static level, which further contributes to sediment accumulation. And so we're slowly losing that beautiful fishery. At this point in time, you can easily fish 6 to 8 pontoon boats on the reservoir. There's probably maybe 20 surface acres, 25 surface acres remaining at the reservoir at this point in time. So it's getting a little bit crowded out there. That's why we wanted to go to the motorless and or electric motor only regulation for the reservoir with no wake. And that should really help things out there. We've had getting back into the bait scenario, today the norm is to go out and see people on a routine basis fishing with bait, and they are impacting the fishery. There's absolutely no question about it. It's not uncommon to see people come out and fish for a couple, 3 hours, and they'll take a limit of beautiful naturalized native fish back with them, and that definitely is impacting that small strain of native fish that remain in that small watershed. So we are concerned at this point in time. Again, we would like to go back to the 1970s era regulation with a restricted season. And in addition, we would like to reduce the harvest limit to 2 fish. We really appreciate your help on this, commissioners, and I'm glad I had a chance to dial in and provide commentary for you this morning on that particular issue. So I'll turn it back to the floor with those comments at this point in time. Thank you again.
Thank you. Any additional public comment on Zoom? No. Okay, with that, I'll bring it back to the commission. Vice Chair Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One question that I did have was regarding Knott Creek Reservoir, and I was just curious if the department had received public complaints as it relates to the motors on the reservoir.
Yeah, Kim Tisdale for the record. I would say that they're informal complaints. Generally, they go to the biologist and they call the biologist and complain about the motors. We haven't received any official complaints or letters or anything like that. But yeah, just informal dissatisfaction from anglers.
Any additional commission thoughts on Eureka's proposals? I guess for me, it sounds like the electric motors only on Tonkin Reservoir. It's a small reservoir as well, so that I don't have an issue with that at all. It sounds like the bait side of it's maybe not warranted based upon what I heard, but that's just me. So.
Cody, this is for Cody Burns, when you indicated that Tonkin Reservoir was a small acreage, I don't know how many acres it is, but it's pretty small. Did you say that the gas engines were okay on it right now, or they weren't affecting it?
Cody Byrne, Eastern Region Fisheries Supervisor. The current boating regulations do permit gas outboards to be operated out there. Eureka Cab is proposing to prohibit gas motors from operating on Tonkin.
Okay, and that's much smaller than Knott Creek, and that's the proposal for Knott Creek is to have only electric motors as well, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody's pretty quiet up here this morning, so I guess with that, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the amendments to Chapter 488 and 503 of NAC as presented, with the change that I believe we only need to do it in one spot, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. But on the NAC 488, 470 areas limited to vessels without motors and vessels powered by electric motors. I believe it's in subsection 2. We're going to add Knott Creek, and then below that we'll add another item for Tonkin Reservoir.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And this, for clarification, this is to move to a second.
Or
hearing,
second.
possible adoption?
A second reading, yes. I'm sorry. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries with Commissioner Walther absent. Okay, 19B for possible action, Commission General Regulation 511, Wildlife Management Area Designations, Habitat Division Administrator Mark Fries. The commission will hold a workshop to consider amending Chapter 504 of the Nevada Administrative Code. This regulation would update wildlife management area designations and restrictions.
Good morning, Chair Cavilla and fellow commissioners. Mark Fries, Habitat Division Administrator for the record. So we've recently, or the commission's recently designated Argenta and Pole Canyon as wildlife management areas, and we're planning to absorb the Blue Diamond properties into Steptoe WMA. Restrictions on the use of firearms and ammunition, campfires, camping, trapping, access, guiding, and predator hunting are recommended by the department, with some items stipulated as part of the Pole Canyon access easement. In order to regulate and enforce access easement stipulations and department recommendations, the commission must modify and update WMA regulations NAC 504. The department recommends that the commission review and adopt attached WMA regulations. And I'll be happy to walk you through those proposed changes. Before I get started there, just wanted to disclose there was an oversight on the department's part, trying to get these regulations adopted as soon as possible. That oversight particularly being with regard to Blue Diamond and absorbing into Steptoe WMA. Our plan is to go back and revise some of this language at the next meeting, and provide some differentiation with how management's intended for those properties. We're planning to separate some of the meadow properties from the mountain properties so that they can be managed as such. The way it was written up, they're all managed as one. So I know there's a lot of comments. White Pine Cab had some really good feedback for us. And I think this is a good example of a public process, and we welcome that feedback. But we are going to go through and revise to hopefully make this a better regulation. So with that, I'll just walk you through some of the proposed changes. NAC 504.135, we added Argenta WMA for some firearms restrictions. We are allowing the use of rifle or restricting the use of a rifle and pistol. On that WMA, we've seen a tremendous amount of public use, and so it's more of a safety concern out there. Under item 2, we're going to continue to allow deer hunting or adding in Argenta WMA there. You can hunt deer with bows, arrows, shotguns. Item 3, we added some language to make it consistent with statewide regulations. So we added the use of shotgun capable of holding more than 3 shells is permissible on all wildlife management areas owned or managed by the state during the snow and Ross's geese season, during which time that all other waterfowl seasons are closed. Basically, right now, WMAs is the only place where a plug is required. The rest of the state, you can pull the plug during this season and hunt. So we're just making this consistent between state lands and all other lands. Under item 4, we're adding Carson Lake and Argenta to the restricting toxic shells there. And then moving on to section 504.140, campfires. We're basically prohibiting campfires on the Blue Diamond, the Steptoe properties, except those areas that are designated for camping. Under NAC 504.145, talking about restrictions on camping, the intent is to restrict camping on the Blue Diamond properties to those designated locations that currently exist. We're still working through the process with what campsites should remain open. There's a few we're concerned about for resources or just poor campsite selection. So there may be a few of those sites closed, but the majority of the Blue Diamond property camping spots are going to remain open. That's our intent. And we'll be happy to provide more information on that in the future as we work through that process. Under NEC 504-160, we added a section on Argenta WMA restricting turkey hunters to only one portable blind. We have noticed some issues out there with people setting up multiple blinds in multiple locations, kind of an informal reservation system that's caused some issues. This was supported between law enforcement, habitat, and game that frequent the WMA. So hopefully this addresses that problem. And then on the last page, NEC 504-320 talks about the Pole Canyon Cooperative Wildlife Management Area. There's quite a few stipulations in here we're including. All these stipulations were agreed to in the public access easement agreement. And so we're just following what was negotiated during that process and putting it in regulation. Basically, the restrictions or prohibitions we're adding is prohibiting overnight camping, including the parking area. Restrictions on motorized vehicles, electric or battery-assisted vehicles or bicycles, and bicycles except in the Franklin Access parking area and only on the 1,340 feet of existing two-track dirt road in Horse Canyon in the public right-of-way. Animal-assisted access is okay for horses and mules. Commercial guiding is prohibited, predator hunting is prohibited, trapping is prohibited, and campfires are prohibited. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Mark? Commissioner McNitch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mark, could you go over what you said initially about Steptoe and Blue Diamond? And so Blue Diamond is just going to be incorporated into Steptoe Valley WMA. Okay. So what needs to be done with this?
Basically, we stuck it under Steptoe WMA, absorbing Blue Diamond. Well, there's quite a few stipulations and prohibitions on Steptoe. Toxic shot, for example. There's some restrictions on blinds and public blinds that are applicable to more the meadow, waterfowl type areas, but not necessarily the upland areas. And so we're going to need to make a distinction between the upland areas and the meadows and apply appropriate stipulations and prohibitions in their respective areas.
And so we'll see that on a next version.
You'll see those revisions on the next version, but they're not reflected in this current version.
Okay. And then I did have a couple of quick things here. I'm not sure which page, NAC 504.160. Under, under 1B, there's an and at the end of at the end there, we need to move that down to C. After C. And then the D didn't quite fit with the stem of that section where it says a blind to be constructed must. In the Argenta Wildlife Management Area, turkey tag holders are limited to use of one portable blind on the WMA. It doesn't quite fit. So I have a suggested language. It's hard to fix. I was struggling. So I'll throw it out there. So it would read, a blind to be constructed must, for turkey tag holders on the Argenta Wildlife Management Area, be limited to use of one portable blind on the WMA. It's awkward. I did try to, and the other suggestion I would have is to just separate it out as its own number. So that's 1D. Maybe it could just be number 2, and then you adjust the other ones down. It would just be its own little section, possibly. Those are the 2 suggestions. But I think it, and then put the and where it would fit best, where it needs to go. Does that make sense?
Yes, I appreciate that feedback.
Okay. And then on the back page, for NAC 504-320 under the Pole Canyon section, kind of the same idea here. The following activities are prohibited on this area: campfires. I would suggest putting building campfires or having campfires or the activity aspect of it. Campfiring.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mark, I just have a question. You're talking about incorporating the blue diamond into the step toe. I mean, both of those properties to me, when we were in Ely and toured them, seem pretty big. Seems to me maybe we should have them, I mean, I guess the question is why aren't we have blue diamond and step toe as two separate ones? Let blue diamond be its own, just because, I mean, the step toe one was kind of down the valley, and then when we toured was up pretty high. It's like two different environmental areas, I guess. So I guess it's just kind of a question that I have. I mean, they're two really large properties, really. So why do we need to include them? Everything else seems to be broke out. So why can't we just leave them broke out and look at them just a little differently?
Yeah, so for the record, Alan Janae, and so the decision was made on this is they're both geographically the same location. They enter, you know, one is to the headquarters for the Meadow unit, the other is going up Cave Lake route to the mountain. And so just in the sense of simplicity of management, they're all going to be managed by the same staff. We can call it a step-toe Meadow unit, step-toe mountain unit. And we've done this on other properties. When you consider what we do on Mason Valley and how we manage that, we often have regulations that are specified by fields and by units. And so we can do the same thing here with step-toe Meadow units being, you know, that lower meadow, the old 3C and Cummins Lake, and then the mountain being the Blue Diamond.
So it'll be kind of under one management area, but managed within, it'll be managed separately. So it'll be kind of managed two separate areas under one then.
Yeah, it'll still be, you know, step-toe wildlife management area, and the actions that we do on the uplands will absolutely be different than we would do on the meadow.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought. It was just, you know, they're so different that if it would be easier to manage them separately, is rather have them, them all balled up together. But I guess it might not make much difference if we're going to manage them differently. I just think it needs to be looked at differently.
Yeah, and that's the anticipation is that they will be, the uplands being managed. There's different tax and different things that you'll do. Like we can anticipate that we're going to be doing spring protections. We're going to be doing pinyon juniper thinning. We're going to be doing those actions up there that there's not even the possibility of on the meadow units. And the meadow units, we'd be dealing with water management, things like that. So we'll just break it by that categorization. I think in the initial discussions we've had amongst staff is that's a plausible, you know, solution, just similar to what we've done on the Mason Valley and other places. We just describe by a geographic boundary of capturing and saying, yeah, it'll be the mountain units, this will be the meadow units.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I didn't have a question, but just a comment, and that is as it relates to Blue Diamond and Steptoe, and that is, it sounds like you are working closely with the White Pine Cab, but I just want to stress for the department to, you know, work with closely on this and collaborate with White Pine County as it relates to Blue Diamond and Steptoe. I know that there was a lot of comment from White Pine County, both the CAB and the public, and again, I just want to stress and make sure, again, that collaboration is there and that we're hearing them out on some of their needs and requests. So.
Any additional questions or comments? All right, seeing none, I'll take it out for CAB comment. CAB comment in Las Vegas.
Paul Dixon, Clark Cab, and hold on, I can stop giggling. I did say this yesterday, but I went back and looked, so I did speak out of turn yesterday on this one, Pole Canyon. So the first comment that Clark Cab had really came under NAC 504-135 subsection 4, where you use the word toxic shot. And if you go to subsection 7, it says, for the purpose of this section, all shots shall be deemed toxic unless approved as non-toxic by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. If we're going to use, when we put the definition at the very end of what we mean by toxic, is there a way that that could be reworded maybe so that it's clear up front when somebody says toxic, you know, as defined by the Fish and Wildlife Service or something, just so you don't have to have the subsection 7 is my question to you, whether it's necessary. Simplification. And then the last thing really came from under NAC 504-320, the Pole Canyon Cooperative Management Area. It says the following activities are prohibited. And when it says motorized vehicles or electric battery-assisted vehicles and bicycles, except in the Franklin River access parking, and only 1,340, which is a quarter mile plus 20 feet. So it's very, very precise, of the existing 2-track dirt road. The question was brought up at our cab of whether that is ADA compliant and whether or not we need to look at that. When you say you can't use electric motorized, how does that fit ADA compliance? And that also leads to number 3 under their animal assisted access. We have horses and mules, but for some people that are ADA compliant, they have service animals that are required for them to do things. And I wondered whether or not whether or not we were meeting the intent of the ADA with those two things, the way that they're written right now, with the words up above that say that it's prohibited. So that was our questions. I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer here, but I thought I'd ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Any additional cab comment in Las Vegas? Okay, seeing none, any cab comment on Zoom? Seeing none, any public comment in Las Vegas? Seeing none, any public comment on Zoom? No. All right, with that, I'll bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Keel. Correct. Yeah, I guess we could forward it to a second reading, knowing that the department is going to amend it based upon their discussions with White Pine. Yeah.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously with Commissioner Walther absent. Okay, agenda item number 19C for possible action, Commission General Regulation 509, License and Vessel Product Refunds, Data and Technology Services Administrator Kim Munoz. The Commission will consider and may take action to approve amending NAC 502 and 488 to allow the department authority to provide refunds on licenses and vessel products.
For the record, Kim Munoz, Data and Technology Services Division Administrator. We would like the commission to consider amending NAC 502 and 408 to allow the department the authority to provide refunds on licenses and vessel products. We do have one on-the-fly amendment that we would like to strike. Management analyst Kaylee Musso did get with LCB about striking this language that they have proposed. And what we would like to take out is on the section 1 of both chapters 488 and chapter 502, that last sentence that says any such refund must be made to the person who paid the fee. We have scenarios where a spouse or a family member will pass and we do not refund back to them, and we will refund to the spouse or a family member. So we would just like to strike that particular sentence out of both of those sections. So that was the last sentence on one on both of those. So with that, I will take any questions that the commission might have.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'll take it out for cab comment. Any cab comment in Las Vegas? Okay, seeing none, any cab comment on Zoom? No. Any public comment in Las Vegas? Okay, seeing none, any public comment on Zoom? No. Okay, Commissioner McNinch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, I did have one quick question. So, Kim, I was trying to look up the version that came from LCB, and I'm having a hard time finding it. But, so this, what if a non-refundable fee is inadvertently or inappropriately assessed? Is it refundable with that current language?
No.
So, I mean, when it says non-refundable, it doesn't matter if it was inadvertently assessed or not. It's just not coming back.
Correct. If the fee, it's like the processing, we do the dollar processing fee, which is given over to our license vendor to pay for their services, and that fee is non-refundable. Our management fees that we assess to tags and stuff like that, those are not refundable. So we would not, in those circumstances, be refunding
Okay,
those.
that helps to understand that, and that makes sense to me. I lost track of that.
Right, so a lot of the times what ends up happening is people will have like their boat on auto renew and they'll sell the boat and forget to take it off of auto renew. We don't have the ability right now to refund them that registration the way that the current NAC is written. So what we're seeking is just upon our determination, we would like to be able to issue those refunds to individuals.
Okay, good. That helped me a lot, understanding the fees, the non-refundable stuff, because they're really not inadvertent. They're very purposeful and pretty limited, really. So, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions or comments? Or a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to move CGR 509 to a second hearing for possible adoption as presented with the department's suggested verbiage to be included in that second round.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously with Commissioner Walther absent. Okay, agenda item number 20A, Commission General Regulation Adoption, Public Comment Allowed. Commission General Regulation 510, First Come, First Serve Exchange to obtain a tag, Management Analysis, Megan Manfredi. The Commission will consider and may take action to approve amending NAC 502 that would include any money, goods, or services exchanged for procurement of a tag through the First Come, First Serve program as grounds for suspension from the program. Commission General Regulation 510 is currently a temporary regulation that is set to expire on November 1st, 2023.
Thank you, Chairman. Members of the Commission, Management Analyst Megan Manfredi for the record. As stated by the Chairman, the proposed regulation change was heard about a year ago and adopted as a temporary regulation. So we're hearing it again to adopt it as permanent. So the regulation establishes restrictions to the First Come, First Serve program for any individual attempting to create an unfair advantage for themselves or take advantage of the program, specifically prohibiting the trade of money, goods, and services in exchange for the tag procurement through the First Come, First Serve program for all parties involved.
Okay. Any questions for Megan? Commissioner McNinch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real quick one. On page 2 under 4, does the or after D need to be moved down to after E?
Yes, it does.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That's all I had. It makes sense to me, so.
Okay. Any additional questions? Right. Seeing none, I'll take it out for cab comment. Any cab comment in Las Vegas? Seeing none, any cab comment on Zoom? Okay, any public comment in Las Vegas? Any public comment on Zoom? All right, with that, I'll bring it back to the commission. Vice Chair Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I just had a question on, must be section 5 here, in terms of all parties, all involved parties shall be suspended by the department for using electronic system. If this is found to be true, is the suspension for that season period, and they're good to participate the following year? Or I guess I want to be clear on the
So the
penalty.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Rogers. Megan Manfredi for the record. The regulation does suspend the individual for the first come, first serve of that system if there are continuous attempts to take advantage of the program. That individual can be suspended for a lifetime, and so no more participation through first come, first serve. We have not had anyone do that, so hopefully everyone stays in line. But yes, it is just for the season, but multiple attempts will be for a lifetime.
Okay, any additional questions or comments?
Since the temporary regulation expires on November 1st, is this something that we have to take care of?
Correct.
Right
We
now.
can adopt it today. Yep.
Okay. That was all. I guess then I'll make a motion.
Okay, go for it.
I will move to approve regulation, general regulation 510 as presented.
Okay, with that, did we have a one minor change, right?
With the change of moving or, under number 4D, removing or from 4D and moving it to 4E after the semicolon.
Okay,
Thank you, I'll second that. And when you do make comment, you're volunteering to make motions, I've realized around here.
Yeah.
all right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye, opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously with Commissioner Walther absent. Okay, agenda item number 21A, Commission regulations for possible action. Commission Regulation 23-15, fishing seasons and regulations for January 1, 2024 through December 31st, 2025. Fisheries Division Administrator Chris Crookshanks. The commission will consider and may take action to approve the fishing seasons and regulations for 2024 and 2025.
Morning, Chairman Cavilla, Commissioners. Chris Crookshanks for the record, Fisheries Division Administrator. Presenting this item will be Kim Tisdale, our Sport Fish Coordinator, Staff Specialist. And we may also have some comments. If you have specific questions, we might have comments from our regional supervisors, Travis Hawks, Cody Byrne, and Brandon Sanger. Thank you.
Good morning again. Kim Tisdale, Fisheries Staff Specialist for the record. We have quite a number of fishing regulation changes that we're bringing to you today, many more than we typically do. We have, over the course of the past few years, really been working on simplifying our fishing regulations to remove any perceived barriers to people wanting to get into the sport of fishing. If you have too many fishing regulations and they're all different, it could be very intimidating for people. And so we've really tried to, simplify things, make things more consistent across the board. And for this cycle, for the 24-25 year, we really have made a lot of changes. Our CR table in the back is all red and green. It looks like a Christmas tree. So I have put together a PowerPoint presentation to kind of walk you through all of the changes. And so we'll just proceed with that. Thank you. Okay, so we have consolidated all of our regional general regulations prior to this proposal. Regulations were kind of all over the board. The Eastern region had different general regulations for different counties, and they even had different stream general regulations depending on what county you were in. So what we've done is for each of the regions, we've just consolidated things to be one general regulation, which The general regulation covers all of the waters in each region other than those that have special regulations. And so for the Western region, the general regulation change that we're proposing is just to bring mountain whitefish down to 5 mountain whitefish, where previously it was 10. So we have a 5 trout, 5 mountain whitefish, 15 warm water game fish, not more than 5 maybe black bass, and 5 maybe walleye. Not all waters in the region have walleye, which is why things were split up by counties, but we just kind of combined everything for all Western region waters. Eastern region, we have eliminated the stream general regulations. So the daily general regulations for Eastern region waters would be 5 trout, 5 mountain whitefish, 15 warm water game fish, not more than 10 maybe black bass, and there's no limit on northern pike or yellow perch, so unlimited, unlimited harvest on those species. And then southern region, there was no change. Southern region general regulations are consistent with Arizona, and so we didn't make any changes there. Okay, another big change that we're proposing, and this is based on requests from anglers over the years, cabs, and even our own fisheries personnel who have requested that we implement a possession limit. Under the current regulation, Nevada only has a daily limit. So if you go to a water, you take your limit the next day. If you're spending multiple days at a water, you can't continue to fish because you already have your limit. Under the possession limit that we're proposing, we're proposing a possession limit that would be 2 times the daily limit of the water that you're fishing. So this possession limit applies to all general regulation waters and then all special regulation waters. So no matter where you're at, the possession limit is twice what the daily limit is. And so the kind of the definition of daily limit means the maximum number of game fish that may be lawfully taken and reduced to possession by a person in 1 day. The possession limit is 2 times the daily limit for the water in which the fish were caught. So, you know, every water has its possession limit. So you can fish, say you're fishing at Knott Creek Reservoir, there's a 1 fish limit. You're staying the weekend there. On the first day, if you harvest 1 fish, you've reached your daily limit. If you're camping there, you can fish again the next day, take another fish, so you've reached your possession limit at that point. You cannot continue to fish Knott Creek Reservoir unless you consume one of those fish or give it away. If you keep those 2 fish, you decide to go over the hill and fish at Onion Reservoir. You can fish Onion Reservoir. You're at a new water, so you have a new daily and possession limit. So you can take your 5 fish at Onion the next day. If you have those 5 fish in your cooler, you can take another 5 fish, and then you're done fishing unless you consume some of those fish. So that's how the possession limit works. So we're proposing that statewide. Okay, back to the general regulations, the simplification of what we've done by consolidating our general regulations. We've eliminated quite a number of waters from our special regulations sections. So all of these waters which were in the special regulations section in the eastern region they fall under general regulation. So it just really makes that special regulation section a lot smaller, easier to understand, and it's more consistent across the board. Okay, now we're moving into the specific water regulation changes that we're proposing. For Douglas County, the only change we have is to Mountain View Park Pond. This is a new urban pond, and we are proposing to add this pond to the Douglas County urban pond regulations. So The daily limit will be 3 game fish, possession limit would be 6 game fish, and hours are when the park is open to the public. Bruno River and tributary streams currently is 10 trout and 10 mountain whitefish. We are proposing just general regulations for this water, so it would be 5 trout, 5 mountain whitefish, 15 warm water game fish, not more than 10 maybe black bass, so that's the Eastern Region general regulation. We are seeing a reduction in harvest on this water, but with the possession limit over the course of 2 days, which if you're fishing Bruno River, you're probably staying out there, you still get to take your 10 fish with the possession limit. So we're simplifying regulations by making them more consistent across the board. Jarbidge River, East Fork and West Fork and tributary streams. Same thing, we're simplifying regulations, so we're bringing the 10 mountain whitefish that is currently allowed down to 5, and then the possession will be 10 and 10. And then Ruby Lake National Wildlife Refuge has a 3 trout limit, which is kind of different from everything, so we're proposing to make that 5 to make it more consistent, more intuitive for people who are fishing different waters throughout the state. They just know that it's 5 fish. So we're proposing to up that daily limit to 5 fish. We feel like the fishery can support that increased take. And your possession limit is 10 trout and 10 black bass. Okay, Willow Creek Reservoir and Wilson Sink Reservoir both have a size restriction on there where it requires a minimum size of 10 inches on the black bass. We're proposing to remove that size restriction on both of those waters. For Willow Creek Reservoir, we don't even have bass in Willow Creek. That regulation was put into effect a number of years ago in anticipation that we were going to develop a bass fishery there. But that never was realized because, first of all, anglers were really liking the crappie fishery that was there, and we are, so we're going to stick with that. And also we have LCT in the upper watersheds, so we probably couldn't put bass in there anyways because you have the Endangered Species Act regulations that would kind of discourage that. So we're removing the bass size restriction from Willow Creek Reservoir. Wilson Sink Reservoir also has it, and we do have a robust population of bass in Wilson Sink Reservoir, but there are a lot of small fish, so the reservoir could actually probably benefit from an increased take of smaller fish, so we're taking that size restriction off there to encourage people to take more small fish, and it might provide the opportunity for fish to get larger if we reduce some of the smaller bass in that population. So that's the change that we're proposing for those. All right, Blue Lakes and Onion Valley Reservoir in the Pine Forest range. Currently there is a season on those reservoirs, second Saturday in June through November 15th. We are proposing to open those reservoirs year-round.
Recording in progress.
There's no biological justification for the season. There's no real need in our view to have that season, so we're proposing to open that year-round, which will allow people a longer fall season and allow people who are visiting the pine forest later in the season to enjoy those reservoirs. And so Blue Lakes and Onion Valley Reservoir will fall under the Western Region General Regulation. Knott Creek Reservoir, similar situation. We're removing the season, which was the same season that I just mentioned. So that will be open year-round, and we're also removing the minimum size restriction for trout. Currently, anglers are only allowed to take 1 trout over 18 inches. We're removing that size restriction. Knott Creek is a very productive water. We have a very robust population in there, and it is hatchery supported, so we do stock it. So there are a lot of fish in there, and if people want to take a fish under 18 inches, you know, we would encourage them to do that. It's not going to be a detriment to that trophy fish designation. Big Springs Reservoir, we're removing the season on that as well, making it year-round, and it's going to fall under the general regulation for the western region. Big Springs Reservoir has actually been essentially dry for the past 20 years. It was an incredibly productive fishery for a lot of years. It grew huge rainbow trout, but the springs dried up back in the early 2000s, and we've just been kind of hoping that it would come back someday, but it just doesn't seem to want to do that. So we're going to, you know, open that up, put it in general regulations, get it off the special regulations section, because people see that and they think that it's an active fishery, and it is not. So maybe someday it'll come back. Smith Creek Reservoir, we talked about this earlier with the CGR. As I mentioned before, it had a season on it and a restrictive take. We're proposing to change that to make it Eastern Region General Regulation water because it no longer warrants a special regulation. All right, Nesbitt Lake on the Key Pittman Wildlife Management Area. Currently, their regulation limits bullheads to 50. We're just proposing to change that to unlimited because if you're going to catch 50, you might as well catch 51, and who's going to count? So that's why I'm making that proposal. I'm sure the game wardens will appreciate that. Eagle Valley Reservoir and Meadow Valley Wash above the reservoir. There is currently a seasonal catch and release regulation. The biologist has been monitoring that. It doesn't seem to be having the effect that he hoped it would, and so we're just proposing to remove that that catch and release from April 1 to June 30th. Kirch Wildlife Management Area, including Thule and Dacey, the same thing. The current regulation had 50 bullheads. We're proposing an unlimited take on all the Kirch Wildlife Management Area waters for bullheads. All right, Catnip Reservoir up on the Sheldon National Wildlife Refuge currently has a season, second Saturday in June through November 15th. We're proposing to open that year-round. There's no biological justification for the season. We used to use it as a wild broodstock for cutthroat trout. We would collect cutthroat from Catnip and spawn them with rainbows from Big Springs, which are, you know, fairly close together. But we don't really do that anymore, and it is also a hatchery-supported fishery, so there's no reason for the season. So no other changes to catnip. All right, Hobart Reservoir and tributaries and Franktown Creek downstream from Hobart Reservoir to Red House. So we discussed this also earlier in the CGR discussion. Hobart Reservoir is in the Carson Range above Carson City. It's a high mountain reservoir. It's got a very robust population of brook trout, overpopulated and kind of stunted. So there's plenty of brook trout in there. So we are proposing to remove currently there is a regulation that requires allows anglers to only take one fish over 14 inches. There's no reason to prevent people from taking fish under 14 inches in Hobart. We would encourage them to take as many small brook trout out of there as they would like. So we are removing that size restriction on trout. But we also have tiger trout in there, and tiger trout are a hybrid between a brown trout and a brook trout, and we raise them in our hatchery and stock them, and they're They're very piscivorous, so once they get to a certain size, they feed on smaller fish. And so the tiger trout are kind of a biological control on the brook trout. And so we want to keep and grow as many tiger trout as we can in Hobart Reservoir so they can act as more of a control on keep that brook trout population from getting too big. So we are also proposing for the possession limit, 5 trout, but not more than 2, maybe tiger trout. So we're limiting the number of tiger trout that people are allowed to take in Hobart. And then the final change on that is this came from a recommendation from somebody to extend the season 1 more month to the end of October. Currently it closes September 30th. We talked with, so there is a Hobart, there's a dirt road that Carson City manages, and they have a gate at the bottom. They keep it open, but once you start getting weather and stuff, it's a very steep road, and it can kind of get washouts, and you get too much traffic up there in bad weather, and the road just kind of gets torn up, and so they'll close it when the weather gets bad. And so we did talk to Carson City and told them we were considering extending that season, and they were supportive of that. They indicated that, you know, depending on the weather, they may have to close the gate at times, but they don't mind if people want to hike up to Hobart from the gate. And so there's no reason not to extend that season. It's beautiful. You could see from the picture, you get the aspen up there. It's a really beautiful high mountain lake. And so we're hoping to allow people to be able to fish further into the fall at Hobart. Battleborn Pond is our newest urban pond. This is out in Spanish Springs. This is actually one of the few ponds, actually one of the only ponds where NDOW actually owns it. We acquired that property, and it's going to be managed under the Wildlife Management Area program. So not only the pond, but there's a whole wetland complex down below. But the first thing that's going to open is this pond. And so we're proposing that the pond be included in the Washoe County urban pond regulations. So the daily for that is 3 game fish, possession is 6 game fish hours when park is open to the public, like all of our other urban ponds across the state. 12 Mile Creek is a very small creek up on the Oregon border. The majority of the creek is in Oregon, and it just kind of dips down into Nevada for about a half a mile. And so we're proposing to make that regulation consistent with Oregon regulation, which is 2 trout, which is not simplified or consistent according to how we're going with all of our other waters. It's a 2 trout limit, but we're just making that proposal just to be consistent with Oregon. Okay, White Pine County, the Ruby Lake National Wildlife Refuge, we're making the same changes that we did in Elko County. The Ruby Lake National Wildlife Refuge straddles both counties. But we do have to actually correct something that we missed the last go around. We have to adjust the hours to, like currently in White Pine, the hours are 2 hours before sunrise to 2 hours after sunset. We're proposing to change that to 1 hour before sunrise to 1 hour after sunset to be consistent with the refuge hours of operation. So we made that change last go around in Elko County, but we didn't. It was kind of an oversight for White Pine, so we're just making that change now. Whew. And that was it. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have on any of those.
Any questions?
Thank you, Chairman. I just have one question on the Knott Creek onion and the removal of seasons. I don't have a problem with removing the seasons. Is there any other factors, new factors that came about to remove them because we've had them for so long and now we're going to remove them? Or it's just kind of time that we remove the seasons?
Yeah, I think that maybe road conditions might have played a role in why they put those seasons on there. But it, you know, everybody's got ATVs and it's easy to get up there now, and so I just, you know, there's just no reason to maintain that season. There's no other reason for those seasons other than, and also, you know, we seem to be kind of drying, so the falls tend to be, winter doesn't come as soon as it used to. And so, you know, a lot of times you'll have great weather right into like November, and so, and even later. And so closing down the fishery restricts use of those fisheries, even when weather conditions and road conditions might be absolutely perfect. So we just allow people to, you know, make the decision on whether they want to go in there, and yeah, so that's why we're making the change.
Commissioner Keel.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Kim, I saw somewhere in the fishing regulations that I think it was the non-resident juniors had like a 50% daily possession limit versus resident, which seems kind of punitive. Is that something that we could address here?
It's not something that we can address in the CR. I think it's going to be a NAC change that we're going to have to propose. So I think that would be, I mean, maybe something that we can include in the CGR 512. It's a different NAC. It's NAC 501. And our current CGR was just for it is for 488 through 503. So I'll leave it up to the regulation gurus, but that would actually be a really good thing to change. So just for clarification for everybody on that, currently the license requirements indicate that non-resident youth under 12 years old, they don't require a license, but for the non-residents, they can only take 50% of what the limit is. So if the limit is 5, then they can take 2.5 or 2 fish, but there's really no reason for that, and we want to encourage people to fish, especially young people, and so I think that's kind of an obstacle or a negative regulation that has been in place forever, and we were just talking about it in the office, honestly, just last week, and wondering, why is this regulation in place, and how have we not noticed to change it yet? So I would say yes, the department would be supportive of that, and I'll let our regulation people figure out if we can include that in this go-around for the CGR, and then it'll go into the next workshop on that.
Perfect.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Additional question. Commissioner McNinch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not really a question, but, you know, attending these WAFA meetings, we talk about, you know, mostly with hunting and stuff, the retention, reactivation, recruitment, the 3 R's. It applies to the fishing stuff too, and one of the major things is to make regulations consistent and make them easier. Make them so that people don't feel restricted because it deters people coming into the system and stuff. And so we're seeing firsthand an effort to you know, have the rubber hit the road here. And this is not easy. I've dealt with regulations. This took months and months and months of conversation and you know, discussing, you know, can we get away with it here? Can we do it here? So I really appreciate the effort. We're seeing the department right now walking the talk. You know, we want to recruit, we want to reactivate, we want to retain, and this is it. This is it right in front of us. So I appreciate the effort, and I know how much work went into it, and you covered a lot of ground. It was very efficient. I actually was able to follow it, so which is saying something.
Commissioner Barnes.
All right, I'm going to throw a wrench in the whole deal here. And I want to get back to what the Eureka Cab, Mr. Evans was saying about the Tonkin wanting to go to a daily limit of 2. So I guess the question, I know we're simplifying everything, but with what the Eureka Cab said with go to a harvest limit of 2, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it does kind of go against the whole trying to simplify regulations and be consistent across the board. So it's not consistent with that. It is a hatchery-supported fishery as well, so I would just say that.
Vice Chair Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I just had a comment, kind of in line with Commissioner McNinch, in that obviously a ton of effort has gone into this, and I just wanted to thank yourself and other staff for trying and are doing a very good job of making a lot of material a bit more simple. Also, as a person who caught and cleaned his first, last, and only bullhead probably 40 years ago, I also applaud anybody that wants to catch 51 of them and and clean them. So
go for it.
But yeah, but thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, Kim, I have one question so in our package here, all these, where we had the specific regulations for the specific waters, where it states in here that's going to remove from the special regulation, we're just going to drop those off the tables? When
Yeah,
you
so
print
when
it, they'll just disappear basically and just fall under the all waters item?
Yes, that's correct. So
Okay.
like when you look at the fishing guide, you have the first page is what the general regulations are, and then there's a big table that has all of the waters that have special regulations and what their limits and what their special regulations are. So everything that is going to be under general regulations now is just going to come off that.
Okay.
It's just going to be general, and then our special regulation tables, or especially in the eastern region, are going to be a lot smaller.
Yeah, and I would assume in our fishing book too, we're gonna, just like we do in the hunt book, we'll have in the front, we'll have a little description saying, hey, we made some major changes,
Yeah, especially this year, because they're so big. I mean, just the going from daily, allowing a possession, and so yes, we're going to have a whole 2 or 3 page thing. This is what's new in 2024 and 2025, and really try and articulate those changes so people understand it.
Okay. Vice Chair Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just one question along those lines. In addition to the booklets, is there any plan for social media around these changes as well to, get as many communications out in different sources as possible?
Yeah, I imagine that we'll be doing a podcast on this for sure, and then we don't have anything specifically lined out, but yes, I mean, it is going to be a, really try and get it out there and make people understand it. So social media and podcasts, all of it. Yes, thank you.
Additional questions or comments? All right, seeing none, I'll take it out for cab comment. Any cab comment in Las Vegas?
Paul Dixon, Clark Cab. There was a concern brought up by one of our cab members that the way that the CGR is written, when you go to the fishing book, it talks about trapping or like transplant between waters being illegal. And they wondered if it has just a very small section on that, and the fact that we have an invasive species problem with people doing stupid stuff in this state. How would we make that more clear or stronger in the in the fish book, so that it was clear with the regulation that not only is it illegal, but there are pretty severe penalties for doing that if caught. And I think making it more clear will at least bring it to more people's attention that that is something that people are doing, and it's more likely that somebody will turn somebody in for doing that illegally because it's been brought to their attention that they're not supposed to be doing it. Thank you.
Any additional cab comment in Vegas? Okay, seeing none, any cab comment on Zoom?
Go ahead, Mr. Evans.
Yes, Jim Evans again with Eureka Cab. I just wanted to provide you an explanation relative to why we were recommending the reduced limit at Tonkin. We feel that there are a number of put and take reservoirs or fisheries surrounding our area that readily accommodate the bait fishermen. We have Cold Creek, Illapaw, Cummins, Cave, South Fork. Good opportunities exist at those particular locations. The 70s era cab, their initiative was to establish Tonkin Reservoir as a blue ribbon fishery, and basically that's kind of the direction certainly that we want to go at this point in time because of the fact that it is such a small fishery with an isolated population of naturalized native fish. And we would like to preserve that fishery as best as we possibly can. Currently, the regulations are frameworked with a artificial only. Dene Creek is closed in order to provide or to maintain a sustainable habitat regimen for our native fish that are spawning in that particular reach. And that's basically where we want to go with this. So we would really like to go to a 2-fish limit. We had also recommended transitioning from artificials into a single barbless hook categorization for the specific lures and flies that would be legal at the reservoir. NDOW has indicated that we're probably going to have a warden on board, at least within the short term, that would be in a position to help enforce the regulations, the current regulations, and more than likely that would have some impact, positive impact or effect on the bait use out at the reservoir. So we're hoping that does happen here within the short term. That would probably help considerably. Also, we're looking at the opportunity visiting with Cody. We're probably going to put some signage out there that is bulletproof per se. In essence, what's been happening, the signage that's been put out there over the past few years, typically the signage is destroyed within a few days after it's posted. But anyway, that's where we're at with Tonkin. We would really like to have the opportunity to manage that as a blue ribbon water. I understand unquestionably the objectives associated with standardization in terms of harvest limits and seasons, but we would really like to make Tonkin and manage Tonkin as a separate entity. So that's where we're at, folks. And again, thank you for the opportunity to make those comments.
Okay, thank you. Any additional cab comment on Zoom? Any public comment in Las Vegas? Seeing none. Any public comment on Zoom? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Crookshanks, do you care to speak to his request on Tonkin again? I know we've kind of already hashed it out, but.
Yeah, absolutely. For the record, Chris Crookshanks, Fisheries Division Administrator. Well, we certainly appreciate all the involvement from the cabs and any involvement from the cabs. We respectfully disagree with the regulation proposed at Tonkin Reservoir. If you looked at Ms. Tisdale's presentation today, there was a common theme, and that was simplification sort of across the board statewide of a lot of these regulations. And if you were to pick up our fishing seasons and regulations book right now, it's a legacy of decades of little experiments everywhere across the state of trying to institute limits and seasons and regulations and tackle restrictions at all these places all across the state. And I think that as fisheries biologists, we're naive to think that some of these tackle restrictions and limits are really having a biological effect when in reality they aren't. A trophy fishery is more dependent on the water chemistry and the habitat and the food resources available to the fish, and it's rarely dependent on tackle restrictions or seasons or limits or regulations. So with that being said, the department is not in support of the Tonkin regulation as proposed by Eureka, but we, like I said, we do certainly appreciate their participation.
Thank you. All right, with that, I'll bring it back to the commission. Vice Chair Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As it relates to Tonkin, am I reading this correct that previously it was 10 on a daily limit and we're changing that from 10 to 5?
Kim Tisdale, for the record. Let me find it. So currently in our proposal, there is no change to Tonkin Springs Reservoir. Currently, it's a 5 trout limit. There's artificial lure regulation in place. The possession limit is just across the board for everything, including Tonkin, so the possession limit would be 10. Yeah, but it's no change to what the daily limit was.
Okay, so previously, it's been 5 and
It's been
10
5.
as well, okay.
Yes.
Any additional questions or comments or movement? I mean, I'll make a motion. Or I see Vice Chair Rogers put his finger up.
Sure. I'll take a stab if there's no more comment or dialogue. And that is, I'd like to make a motion for approval of Commission Regulation 23-15. This is fishing season and regulations. January 1, 2024 through December 31, 2025, as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate Eureka's comments as well, but in my mind, it's more important to start with the simplification, and if we're having major problems, we'll have to revisit it, but it's a hatchery-supported fishery, so I think that there's something to be said because of that, so.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously with Commissioner Walther absent. Okay, agenda item number 22, future commission meeting and commission committee assignments, Secretary Janae and Chairman Cavilla. The next commission meeting is scheduled for November 3rd and 4th, 2023 in Reno. The commission will review and discuss potential agenda items for that meeting. The commission may change the date, time, and meeting location at this time. The chairman may designate and adjust committee assignments and add or dissolve committees as necessary at this time. And any anticipated committee meetings that may occur prior to the next commission meeting will be discussed.
Thank you. So for the record, Alan Janae, looking at what we've discussed today and yesterday, looks like there'll be a TAC meeting sometime involved with the next meeting. We'll come back with the letter that we'll have drafted on the Wine Cup Gamble, and probably if there's any other updates on Wine Cup Gamble, we'll bring that back. There was a request for mule deer project updates. We'll work that into the next agenda. We'll be coming back with the CGRs 511, 512, and 509 that we heard today. We'll bring those back for adoptions, the fisheries regs, the wildlife management area, and license and vessels. And then we've got the predator report, and I was just reminded of a mule deer enhancement meeting involved with that commission meeting as well. That's the list I have. Yes,
I think Commission Policy 23 too, right? I
oh,
got that down
yep,
as
thank you.
well.
Yeah,
and then I know we have others, like Kaylee brought up yesterday, the subdivision map review, just potential deadheads and sheds, junior regulation, like there's others too. We'll just, over the next few meetings, have to see how we can weave all that in. So, and then I guess as far as committee assignments go, we do have new commissioners, or a new commissioner, and kind of what I was looking at on the APRP committee, on that one, I was going to replace Commissioner East with Commissioner Booth on that one. That right now that committee's not active, so the elk damage and incentive committee stay the same. The finance committee, I know Gil is no longer on that, and I had talked to Vice Chair Rogers. We're going to look for someone else to sit in from the public. We haven't landed on anyone yet, and I'll ask the department too to maybe help us on that one. The ledge committee, I guess that one too, I'm gonna talk to Paula and Mario and see who wants to be the chair. Mario wasn't here this weekend, but, and then I would like to put a public rep on there, so with those guys and with the help of the department, we'll see if we've got somebody we think we want to put on that one. Public Lands Committee, stay the same. State Predatory Animal Rodent Committee, the same. The TAC Committee, I've already put Commissioner Young on that one, and then Washoe County Cab member, I think Matt's Malarkey's real busy now with the new job, so I'm gonna replace him with Washoe County Cab member Ryan Brown. The Wayne E. Kirsch Conservation Award Committee, my plan on that one was to leave myself, and then I was gonna put Commissioner McNinch on that one. So you can help out on that one. The Wildlife Damage Management Committee, I was gonna keep it the same. Wildlife Heritage Committee, the same. The Wildlife Scholarship Recipient Selection Committee, I was gonna put Commissioner Young on that one. Landowner Tag Comp Committee, same. Let's see. Regulation Simplification Committee, the same. And then the Mule Deer Enhancement Committee, we've already got a big committee there, but Commissioner Young asked to join that one, so I'm gonna throw him on that one too. Have a bigger party on that one. So that's all I've got. So unless you've got anything else, Alan, we're good?
Chairman Cavilla?
Yeah, go ahead.
For the Landowner Compensation Tag Committee, Tom Donham recently retired.
Okay.
And so I guess I would make the suggestion that Scott Roberts replace him on that committee, or
Okay.
as staff to the committee.
I don't have a problem with that. So the Landowner Comp Tag Committee will replace Tom with Scott. All right, with that, we'll go to agenda item number 23, public comment period. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes. No action can be taken by the commission at this time. Any item requiring commission action may be scheduled on a future commission agenda. Persons making comment are asked to begin by stating their name for the record. Any public comment in Las Vegas?
For the record, Paul Dixon, Clark County. I forgot to mention something under cab. I had brought up a couple of the last two meetings about whether there was an appetite for discussing blood tracking dogs. And since there has not been an appetite for that, I've recommended that the board member get together and put together a petition that we'll bring forward to the commission through the department so that we'll have that discussion and get it resolved once and for all, because I keep getting asked, and I know there are a lot of other priorities sitting out there right now on things, so we'll go through the petition process with that, and I forgot to mention that earlier, just so you guys know it's coming forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment in Las Vegas? Seeing none, any public comment on Zoom? Oh, seeing none, thank you everyone, and we are adjourned, and we'll see everybody in November.